Good morning, Sally.
Morning.
So I'm super concerned because you asked for the link. I sent the link out last week to the committee members. We're the only ones. Here comes people. I was about to say, where the heck is everybody? Did they go to the old link? So maybe this will work. Good morning.
Oh,
How are you?
doing well. How about you, Anthony?
Ah,
You in the office? It's a rainy day.
I live 5 minutes from here,
Okay.
and there's no flooding issue between here and work. So on a
Good.
day this cloudy, if I were home, I'd probably be in the bed somewhere.
Yeah, I understand that. There's a lot of places that flood between work and where I am. So I like parked my car at the top of my driveway and said I'm staying here.
I am glad to be knowing that you all got the right link and everybody's coming in because I can also see where another of my colleagues has started the meeting in a different place. So let me alert.
But it does seem to have you registering. Like I thought I registered already, and that's why it was on my calendar, like the link. But then when you click on the link, it asks you to register again.
Yes, so the way it's set up, and this has been the case for some time, you have to register for each meeting because that's how attendance is tracked.
Okay.
There's probably a little bit better of a way to do it, but there's a setting in Zoom that requires people to register for each meeting, and the alternative is you can register once, just come to any of them you want. So we may have to look at whether or not that actually works, Shante.
Okay. Also, can I get an updated list of all the members of this committee?
Yes, it should be in the email I sent, in terms of the names, but I will have to work. Keisha is away, so I'm just kind of filling in for this meeting. So when she's back, or maybe Colin has it, I will have to get a complete list and give it to you.
Thank you.
I think so far, Eliza, we have you and Nick here. Tracy Stone-Dino is actually hosting, so uh, when she comes, that
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. And I also had sent an email saying that I was going to remove myself from this committee because of the work that I'm trying to get done with governance.
yep,
I'm just like not going to be able to do both.
yep,
So
that's on the
I don't
agenda.
know when that's technically happening. So just let me know and I can vote today or not. I know I had said August, so I'm happy to be a part of the vote, but I just don't know where we're at with that.
It's on today's agenda
Okay.
that you're stepping down, so I'm guessing this meeting could be your last as you get ready to ramp up for the other one.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Let me try, I'm gonna go off camera for a second and reach out to, welcome Nick, welcome everybody. I'm gonna try to reach Tracy just to make sure she is in the right link. Or actually, Jeff, did you see anybody in the other Zoom link when you went over there?
I did not.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna reach out to Tracy really quickly. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, I've emailed Tracy, everyone. I don't have her direct phone number. So we will give another couple of minutes for her to arrive. If needed, Colin, can we just make this an information only meeting?
Yeah, we could, like an information only meeting if we don't have, a quorum.
Right.
What's on the agenda to approve? I mean,
Just the funding recommendations. But
yeah, we can share that. Ultimately, the HSAC
the HSAC approves it, right?
has to
So,
approve it, and we can just share at the HSAC meeting that that performance management didn't have a quorum and we have to bring it to the HSAC, and we can send out those funding recommendations later this afternoon, along with the other things that are gonna need approval to HSAC.
okay. So, just so everybody knows, I don't think this meeting is gonna take an hour and a half. It probably could be an hour at best. So I would like to give another 3 minutes for Tracy to arrive by 10:10. Given that we may still be done earlier. Hopefully everybody is safe and enjoying the rain.
I just heard from a coworker that power is out where she is, so that might be
Yep.
part of the issue for
Ah,
some folks
okay.
not
Yep.
able to join. So just want to flag that. It may be, if that's just situationally today, may be helpful to just send an email to the group afterwards
Yep.
discussing the ESG stuff, just so folks are aware whenever
Yep.
they get power back.
Happy to do that. I assume everybody here has the agenda. I will maybe put it in the chat if that's helpful. And then we can. I don't know how the formatting of this is gonna look in the chat, but that's what we got. Did it come? Did you guys see it? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, here it is. Okay. All right, everyone. So it is 10:10. Because of the attendance and the chair not able to be here at the moment, we are going to call this meeting to order as an informational meeting. Notes will be drafted and sent out to everyone following the meeting, just so that everybody is aware of the information that was shared. We do have a public comment period, so if there's anybody here who would like to make a public comment, the floor is yours. Okay. We will forego approving the May and June minutes, because we don't have, the quorum, Shante. And the next item on the agenda is the changes in membership. So Nick, welcome. Nick Periante is a new member to this committee. And Nick, do you want to take a moment to, I'm assuming you may know everybody here, but if not, do you want to take a moment and introduce yourself and we can do the same?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I definitely appreciate the welcome there. I am familiar with most of the names on the call, I believe. But for those I'm not, it's great to meet you. My name's Nick Periante, and I currently live in Durham near the Briar Creek area. Full time, I'm a healthcare consultant, and pretty much I've lived in North Carolina for close to 6 years now. So definitely appreciate the welcome, Anthony, and I'm looking forward to attending these meetings going forward.
Excellent. Thank you, Nick. Is there anybody who doesn't know Nick? Maybe you introduce yourself to Nick.
Hi, Nick. I'm Shantae Addison. I'm the Director of Client Services at Housing for New Hope. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. Great to meet you.
You too.
And Nick,
Hi, Nick.
Shantae
Um,
serves as the secretary of the committee as well.
Okay, excellent.
Hi, I'm Daisha Shanks. I have my camera off to conserve some internet access, but I work at the North Carolina Coalition to End Homelessness. But just sitting in on these meetings to make sure, nothing questions for like the data center or anything arise. So if you have any questions, you can contact me.
Yeah, we'll do. Thank you, Daisha. Great to meet you.
All right, and just in case, I'm Jeff Rawlings, with the City of Durham. I'm a senior analyst, working with Anthony and Colin as well. I'm a coordinated entry administrator.
Awesome. No, great to meet you, Jeff.
I'm Sally Wilson. I'm the Director of Project Access of Durham County. And I am not on this committee, but I do attend regularly.
Awesome. Thank you, Sally. Great to meet you.
Nick, we've sent some emails back and forth, so I'll just say hello. It's good to see you.
Yeah,
Like see your face versus just sending emails.
I know.
Thank you. So Nick, oh, sorry, Colin, go ahead, please.
Sorry, I'm Colin Davis. I'm the manager of the homeless system and work with Anthony and Jeff and the rest of the team who are not on the call today. A lot of them are out, sort of coordinating the continuum of care in the HSAC. So,
Awesome.
well,
Thank you. Yeah, great to speak with you, Colin.
Colin, I'm not jealous that that's actually your real background and not a Microsoft pretend background.
all right. Sorry, I'll turn off my camera.
No, you're giving us all hope. Keep it on.
I know, right? So thank you, everyone. Welcome again, Nick. Nick, there's a lot of work that this committee does on an annual basis to make sure that we move through the system and performance of the system as best we can. So you'll be learning probably a lot over the coming months as the committee gears up for 2025. Eliza, so next up, we hear that you are stepping aside from this committee. Do you want to give sort of the short summary of that, or?
Sure. Yeah. So I've mentioned this in full HSAC meetings. I'm also transitioning from chair this month. And one of the things we've been talking about in our executive meetings is around opportunities to think about governance changes that could help us operate more efficiently. And we've been talking about this in exec meetings, but haven't really been able to move it forward because there's so many other things that we're talking about. And so we might talk about it 1 month and then not for the next 2. And so I am really hoping to spend the time that I was spending coming to these meetings and as well as chairing HSAC to dive into that work so that I can present that as options for exec to move forward to full HSAC. So my hope is that the governance committee is short-term, that I can really focus in on that. And once that work is passed to exec and whatever decides to move forward to HSAC, full HSAC, that I would return to one of the committees. My sense is it will most likely be this one because the policy and planning has more membership, but that might be different. And so I might be needed somewhere else, but that's the plan. I'm still going to be on HSAC. I just am noticing that if I spread myself too thin, I can't actually do the work well anywhere. And so the intention there was to commit to this piece that's the governance piece that I hope will also support this group. One of the things we've mentioned that has not moved forward is kind of thinking about our current ratio status, and might there be opportunities to rethink that so that more COC members can be engaged in the work and committees. So that's one of the things that we've mentioned, but there are others, some compliance-based, some more long-term, but gathering all that and thinking about it as like a working group prior to bringing it to HSAC seems to be something that will be really helpful to folks. So that is the plan. I'm happy to answer questions if that's helpful.
Thank you, Eliza. If anyone has questions, by all means, you can ask them now or put them in the chat or raise your hand, however you feel comfortable. So we will continue. It is time in the agenda now for me to do a brief presentation around our funding competitions. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that by sharing my screen. And I got to tell you, this has been an interesting and wild ride. And so we'll talk through it. As you know, last year this time I was starting and Lloyd was here and had done a lot of this work. So I'm getting my feet wet, learning and working with everyone at the same time. So please ask me questions. If I've missed something, please raise it. I am doing my best to learn and to navigate. We have a very tight timeline for this process from beginning to end. And so we've done our very best to make sure that we have integrity in our process. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that today. So you all can see my screen, right? Perfect. Okay. So today I'm just going to go over the two aspects of the funding competitions that we have. That's the 2024 state ESG competition. And then I'll do a brief review of this new COC NOFO. I don't have a whole lot of information to go over about that yet, even though they have released it. We will get information out to everyone by next week. But for the state ESG, I'm going to go ahead and talk about that. So as you know, the state announced on June 11th, the competition, and the COC announced it a few days later, I think on June 17th. We had already formed a 4-person evaluation subcommittee that consisted of Eliza, thank you, Renee Vaughn, Vega Swepson of Durham Tech, and Jeffrey Rawlings of the lead agency, City of Durham. We also had an alternate she started out as a test reviewer to make sure the scorecard made sense, but ended up becoming an alternate because we were getting close to the deadline and not all of the reviewers had submitted. So I wanted to make sure we had an adequate number of reviews conducted. So she was an alternate, but we ended up getting all of the reviews complete. So I used the alternate scores where there appeared to be a stark difference in scoring among reviewers to kind of be like a guide to get to some consensus. So thank you to the 4-person committee. The 2024 scorecard was a revision of the 2023 tool. Occasionally the application questions change and they might, for example, this year, they removed a whole section of questions or renamed it to another section. So it might have been, for example, in the year prior, section 4, and in this year, there might have been no section 4, or section 4 was now section 3 or something like that. So we tend to take the scorecard and try to match up as best as possible so that as the reviewers are looking at the scorecard, they can kind of flow along with what they're reading in the application. We also made a number of edits to try to simplify some of the math calculations, which before were more like trigonometry. Now we have kind of simplified them to be a little better and more functional in helping folks to get to some good answers. The math calculations are a result of the scorecard with the ESG CAPER reports that are submitted by the applicants. So it is intended to look at their performance over the prior year period. So everybody was great, everybody turned it in, and we were able to get good information from those papers. We also got good feedback on the scorecard. A lot of people talked about the fact that it did appear more easily readable and that it made the math better. So that was good feedback. Our evaluation team was not able to meet for a orientation altogether. So I put together a orientation presentation, sent it out a few days before the review process started, I believe a few days before. And then set up 6 office hours sessions that I was present for all of them. And it gave reviewers an opportunity not only to review the orientation information with me if they needed additional support, but if they had started the review process, they could ask questions during these office hours. And we would come to some consensus about how they should move forward. So I will say that 3 of the 5 evaluators, including the alternate, attended these sessions and asked good questions and shared thoughts and all of that. So that part went well. We received 4 eligible applications this year, which was super exciting. Last year, we only received 1 eligible application, and that organization received all of the available funding. So this year, we got 4 eligible applications. 1 was a returning application. The other 3 were considered new. And let me just say a caveat that if you weren't funded last year, but were funded in the year before, you would still submit a new application. So 2 of those 3 new had been funded in the past, but they were coming back to the competition. So that was good news. 1 applicant is new to the Durham COC, expanding into Durham from Wake County. And then 1 new project was proposed, which was very exciting. Following the evaluations, some initial funding recommendations were made and then revised with feedback from reviewers in the state ESG office. So just so everybody knows, like once we get to the initial recommendations, we have to reach back out to the organizations because with a number of people applying, whoever is going to be approved may dilute the pot somewhat. So people, if there's, 100,000 available and 1 person asks for 100,000, but we got 2 good applications, suddenly there's the dilemma of trying to figure out, how we allot the funding. And, a lot of that is based on the priority that the system has set. And also the quality of the application and, the ability to carry out the project with whatever funds we can allot. Because if somebody asks for 100,000 and we say we can get you 40, that might not be enough for them to actually pull off the project. And so then we have to talk about those things and come to some consensus. So, we did this process. We had to ask for clarification in some areas, both from applicants and from the state office, which we did successfully. And then where we are today is that performance management will review and accept these recommendations that will move to HSAC. Now, I do need to say that performance management is kind of just being aware of it. HSAC does give the final approval to advance them, but even that is not final, because once it goes to the state, the agreements are between the state and the organizations. And so the state has to make sure that the projects meet their specific criteria for approval as well. So we go through this process because the state requires the community to be involved in having a say about what they want to see happen in the community. But the state office actually approves and funds and pays directly between the agencies, the projects, and the state. So, Colin, did I get that right? Did I miss anything in that process?
I don't think so. I think you
Okay.
got it.
Perfect. So, after next week, when the HSAC approves these recommendations, applicants will be notified and have a right to appeal. And then HSAC, the executive committee will finalize the recommendations for submission, assuming there's an appeal. They have to come back together. Otherwise, they're just already finalized. We are not anticipating an appeal, but we always have to allow for that possibility. So, anybody have questions so far? I'm about to jump into the recommendations. Give me 1 second. This may be Tracy calling me, if you don't mind. Anthony, can I help you? Hey, Drew, can I get back to you? Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that. I wanted to be sure it wasn't Tracy trying to get in. So let's go to the recommendations. Did anybody have questions about anything I've said so far? Okay, perfect. What you're looking at is a sort of simplified chart of who applied, what activity they applied for, how much they requested, the average score of the max that they received, the suggested award, which is what we are, what the evaluation committee has put forth, and the percent of what is available toward that suggested award. So, as you know, in this competition, we had $170,260 that the state made available for us to apply for as a regional body. And the system approved for a 50-50 split between those. So emergency services has 85,130. Housing stability has 85,130. So in the emergency services category, which covers shelter operations, street outreach, we had 3 applications that asked for 270% of what was available, which was $229,000. For housing stability, same amount is available, and 140% was requested. Tracy's actually joining us now. Welcome, Tracy.
Hey there, good morning. I'm sorry, I had technical this storm.
No
I have
worries.
technical issues logging on, and our IT department was remotely trying to get me logged in. So I apologize for not getting in sooner.
No worries. Thank you. We've covered some things and we have been doing it as information only.
Okay.
And we are now reviewing the presentations. I would think that after this part, if we have a quorum, which I believe we might, that we could go back and approve the minutes.
Okay.
So I'll finish this part.
Okay, go ahead.
So, you know, we had 3 folks apply, for emergency services. I will say, that the evaluation subcommittee, one of the new projects that was proposed was a safe parking lot. And the evaluation subcommittee was very excited to support it. What was requested was $80,000, and the initial amount that was allocated to it was around 25. But we had to go back and request some additional information from the agency. And when we did, we learned that the project wasn't necessarily shovel ready. There was a lot of loose ends that needed to be tied up in getting it to be ready. The agency was counting on the time between now and January to actually pull all of that together. But what the state looks at is projects that are ready to go on day one. And typically from the time of submission. You know, if there were 1 or 2 things that needed to just be finalized, it might have made a difference. But because of not wanting to risk the allocation to the Durham COC, we have decided not to fund them in this competition, but to encourage them to continue to flesh out the idea and put some concrete details in place that can make for a stronger application for a future competition. So with that in mind, we then split the difference between the other 2 agencies, Families Moving Forward and Housing for New Hope. And based on their scoring is how the allotment was pretty much suggested. So as you can see, Housing for New Hope scored very, very high. And Families Moving Forward was requesting money for a different function. So that's the emergency services category. Does anybody have questions about that? Or thoughts? All right, perfect. For housing stability, this covers areas like rapid rehousing, like HMIS, and 1 or 2 other services. But for this competition, we received rapid rehousing proposals. We received 2. One organization asked for 100% of it, and the other one asked for 40%. So, you know, they both scored relatively well. One agency is new to Durham, coming from Wake County. And so we have put together initial recommendations to fund them the way you see, 55,000 going to Housing for New Hope and 30 going to Family Promise of the Triangle. This will allow us, Family Promise joined the Durham COC in May. They've been attending the by name list meetings. They've already taken a number of referrals for rapid rehousing, so they're already fully engaged. They hit the ground running. So we think that it's a good expansion of our capacity to have another agency helping us with this. So that is the funding recommendations. Now, I do want to say that even though the evaluation subcommittee has done this work, gotten to this place, there's still 1 or more conversations to be had with the agencies, and the agencies could change their mind. And so we've got to have a backup plan for that. And so we will be working on that over the next day and a half, so that by, let's say, the end of tomorrow, we're kind of very confident. So there is a slight chance that this information could change again before it gets to HSAC. And if it does, I will happily email to everybody the way I've kept everybody informed so far. Sorry. Any questions about the North Carolina ESG process, funding recommendations, anything?
Anthony, this is Tracy. Is it possible to provide any technical assistance to Open Table Ministries, or did you all kind of meet with them to kind of get an assessment of, you said it wasn't really shovel ready, to get an idea of what percentage they were ready to move forward in the event they receive funding in the future?
What I said to Colin yesterday, I think, was that we're not able to assist agencies in the application process. And we're not, once they've applied, we can't offer technical assistance about the proposal, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
But what we can do, and I said it to Colin yesterday, we could put ourselves in a position prior to these competitions to talk about what the competition looks for, how to prepare shovel-ready projects, how to, know if your project is ready to be funded, right? We could do more as a lead agency outside of competition times to kind of attract and work with organizations to prepare better applications, or at least to know what a better application looks like. And this was really an exciting proposition. I feel so bad, not being able to do it, because the lead work group, our lived experience work group, also advocated for a safe parking lot. So it would have been an answer to a lot of people will feel good with that project. But just FYI, I hope I'm not disclosing too much, like, the project was really a great idea. Like, there haven't been, the agency was waiting on a funding notice to put the details together.
Okay.
So they haven't talked to anybody about where the lots might be. They haven't secured any lots so far. There could be multiple lots and it could rotate. We're not sure. There's no provision for security at the lots in favor of camera monitoring. The staffing of the lots was going to be about 2 hours in the evening. There were questions about access coming and going. For example, after 9 o'clock when it's not staffed, how do people enter and exit? So there were a lot of questions that, were on the table that we thought internally that the state could kick this back. And if the state kicks it back, then what do we do? So we were really trying to prepare to make sure that we, did our best to do enough due diligence here.
Yeah, and it sounds like you all really strategically thought about maybe questions they didn't think about as they kind of, brainstormed and kind of pulled together a vision for the project, and sometimes not being able to, think about. So they used to say the details in the devil's in the details.
Yeah.
That's really key in terms of being able to take it from a vision to execute it and, make it feasible or viable. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Sure.
I think,
And I can tell you, even a couple of the reviewers commented that it looks like the project relies on new staffing to accomplish it, right? And that gave us pause too, because it was like, wow, so if we're not able to fund it, they won't be able to hire the person that was going to implement it, right? So there was a lot with it. So I appreciate your support, and Lord knows Eliza and I spent some time in email and talking, and she asked great questions. I love working with Eliza because she's so smart. she has good questions. I just, you know, no one wanted this here more than me because of my affiliation with the lead work group. But I really have to keep the system in mind and what the state will say about the results in mind. And so I really want us to do a better job as lead agency prior to these competitions, working with the agencies throughout the year about what this is going to look like. So I think we have some room to do that.
Yeah. And I
Um,
appreciate you all too, just again, thinking about all these things versus going through and submitting this to the state and having it kick back and not have a contingency plan in place.
yeah,
See,
yeah,
Jeff's hand is up. Jeff,
yeah.
did you have a question?
I was just gonna piggyback what Anthony said. He explained it very well, and it was a very detailed process. And also to add to Tracy, to your question, we've been doing TA with Open Table, but this was not a part of what we were doing TA with. But now that we have the knowledge that this is their plan, then moving forward this year, we can be looking at that, and we can also play devil's advocate with them on some of these things. When they bring things forward, then we can look at this from a system perspective and also from how it might be viable to the state, looking at a possible application next year. So that is in our purveyance. We do have another TA set up with them in the near future.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that, Jeff.
Thank you. So, my only other presentation today, which will be very brief, I promise, is on the COC competition for this year. It was announced on July 31st. Today is August 8th. And we have not had a chance to get it out yet or to even completely review it all, but we are working actively on that. Part of it has to do with the two competitions overlapping and where we are in this particular competition. Some things have changed in the 2024 NOFO, so I'll talk a little bit about that with these bullet points. So, my champion, Sally, is Sally still here? I don't see her, but my champion, Sally, and I have really been interested in the full debrief from HUD from last year's scores. They did give us kind of the initial debrief document that they sent to everyone, but they do allow for a full debrief request. We did request it within the acceptable time frame. We did not hear back from them, so we requested again and again. So we actually followed up twice. And we have never heard back to get a date. We do know that the Colin, is it the regional office, the Greensboro office, was involved in and is aware of our request for a full debrief. But they have not yet been able to lock down a time or a date or any additional information from HUD at this point about it.
Correct.
So we will have to go off of what we have for this application. We did register on time this year for 2024. There wasn't much to that. Grant information, grant inventory worksheets are typically due around the April or May timeframe, or maybe even March or April timeframe ahead of when the COC NOFO is released. This year they were due July 10th, so that gives you some sense of the delay in HUD getting this information together. We have formed an initial review committee. I have Eliza as a maybe, and I have Renee and Vega as folks that have said yes. If we have any others on this call that would be willing to review, we would be happy to take you as a volunteer. We will put together information for you in advance like we always do. And we have simplified the review process of this this scoring process as well. So hopefully we can secure a couple more reviewers. If you want to review, just put something in the chat that says I'd be willing, and I'm happy to add you to the list. As a part of this, we do 2 performance evaluations, one in the spring and one in the fall. And the fall one helps with our prioritization of projects for funding. So we will be doing that in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We did it before. You saw us in the spring do a performance evaluation, and we talked a lot about the scores that agencies received and where some opportunities to improve were. And we talked about a lot of the TA that Jeff and I have been doing around to the different agencies and hoping that their performance might increase as a result of the TA that we provided. So we will know more about that later this month as we prepare for this competition. And of course, be reporting this out to this committee probably as soon as next month. Of course, like all the other competitions, the HSAC must approve the final application to be submitted. This year, the application is due October 30th by 8 p.m. So we have about 10 weeks or so from now to pull everything together. And we expect to release more information about it with the timeline, our timeline, to our COC by next Tuesday. So that's all I have on this for now. I will also say, you can see at the top, it says 2024-25. You probably heard us mention that HUD was considering going to a 2-year NOFO instead of an annual NOFO. So they did do that. This year is a 2-year NOFO, so we won't have this process again next year, thankfully. But it will be this year and then again in 2026. They also combined this year's NOFO with the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Project. But they have 2 separate deadlines. The deadline for that one is not until August of 2025. So more to come after we have a chance to review it. It is about 120 pages or so of very detailed information. So we're going through that and trying to summarize it so that we can get it out to the COC and also get it posted to our websites and things like that. So thank you all. If you have any questions, by all means, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, Madam Chair, I will turn it back over to you.
Well, Anthony, thank you for that that overview. So the NOFA has been released, and so this is kind of like a given to take a timeline in terms of where we will be in terms of moving forward with the overall collaborative application, but you haven't kind of put together a timeline for individual applications from the COC funded projects yet. You and the staff are working with that from the city of
Yes.
Durham. Okay.
And just, in anticipation of it, we did a timeline earlier, but the timeline was blown when HUD was delayed. So we have to revise it. There's also other considerations in this particular NOFO. So I hope that will be done by Tuesday. That's my goal, to kind of shift gears and focus intently on that.
Well, I think it's good that we'll shift to a 2-year cycle, but also what are the implications to shifting from a 2-year cycle versus an annual cycle? What are the implications of that?
Colin, you may know more. I don't think there are many, because in theory, I think the same sort of things apply, right? Like, in other words, the annual renewal demand, is considered, and this year they actually are allowing for a small increase in the second year, I think, like a 3% increase or something like that. Colin, something?
All right. HUD has weird math formulas. So when you apply, as you know, Tracy, when you apply for funding, especially if you have operations money or rental assistance money or leasing money, you'll apply for dollar amounts at a certain amount, but by the time the money is awarded, the fair market rents have changed. So HUD has this crazy math formula. I found it once of how they calculate the increase. So the amount you apply for ends up being a little less than what you get. So they'll sort of automatically apply that to year 2 of the funding, and would be looking at this year. Renewal projects are always the priority for the HUD COC. There is usually the opportunity for a DV bonus or a regular bonus project that we hope we can find people to apply for. And we've got $302,000 of DV rapid rehousing money that's being reallocated within the system. And we need to go back because HUD offered guidance on that, saying DV reallocations needs to stay in DV reallocations. So we're going to have to find somebody willing to apply to do a DV prioritization rapid rehousing project. Whereas a month ago or in June, we were not aware of that ruling. And the priority for that reallocation was that the funds would go to a permanent supportive housing program. And now we're finding that HUD's ruling is that can't necessarily happen. So we do have $302,000 that has to be reapplied for in a DV prioritized rapid rehousing project. And hopefully we can find somebody to apply for it and make a run at it. And if not, we'll lose $300,000 from the continuum.
So as far as once the lead agency for the COC submits the collaborative application, so it is now fiscal year, we're in calendar fiscal year 24-25. So the next round will be in 2027, but we'll prep in 2026 for 27 through 29. Is that the case?
I'm sorry, Tracy, I missed that. I thought you were directing it to Colin. Will you say it again?
I was.
Oh, sorry.
I'm trying to do two things. What's the question exactly? The
No, I'm
COC
saying right
collaborative
now.
process?
Yeah, so right now we're in fiscal year 24-25.
Mhm.
They're in a 2-year cycle, so that would cover us to 2027 or fiscal year
So let me
2026.
think. Great question. So the application is being submitted in 2024.
Mhm.
So year 1 would begin during calendar year 2025. Year 2 would begin during calendar year 2026.
Okay.
So all of it would get spent out by the end of calendar year 2026.
Okay.
If my math is doing it correctly, because you have 12 months. You could bleed into 2027. If you started in like December of 2026, the project would have to start during that calendar year
Right.
and be done by the end of 2027. So each renewal project has a start date and it kind of builds on that. So it would be they're in the process of contracts haven't gone out. We've got the 2023 awards are beginning to get used during this calendar year. And I know some of those grants start in September, October, November of 2024, and would be finished getting spent in 2025. So this year's grant would start in 2025 or start in 2026. So yes.
Okay. And so between fiscal year 26-27, there will be kind of like a prep for the next cycle to start between fiscal year 26 to prepare for 27 through 29. So it's almost like
Correct.
12 months in between, you're prepping for those next 2 years. But in the interim, in those years, what are projects and what is the COC lead agency having to do? Are we going through kind of the normal in terms of submitting, either performance evaluations or outcomes or things through eSNAP to be prepared for the next process, but not going through this whole formal process of the application piece?
I think this is a piece that just came out, about 10 days ago, and how it shakes out on the operational year-to-year basis. We haven't gotten that far into it.
Okay.
We'll still probably end up doing our semi-annual evaluations of projects to make sure folks are still on track. We would be working towards our renewal application, the next renewal application will be done in 2026.
Mhm.
So, you know, we'll kind of be looking at this year's application that's gonna, you got to keep in mind the HUD continuum of care application is kind of a two-pronged thing. One, it's tell us what you've done as a continuum over the last period, and then tell us what you're planning to do in the go forward. So that's one of the reasons that you know, the city hired an additional staff person. We're still trying to fill 2 positions, but essentially Anthony's position is trying to help us make sure that he's kind of our drummer or our conductor, making sure we stay on beat and are making sure if we put this in the application, are we actually on track to make it happen? So that when we get to the next application, we can be checkbox, checkbox, checkbox. Yep, these happened.
Mhm.
So that's kind of what we'll be doing between now and the next application. The nice thing is having that 2-year cycle is there's more time to do that because HUD doesn't, we submit it, HUD doesn't announce awards till February or March a lot of times. And then there's a delay and then there's contracts that have to happen. And by the time you're in March and getting the awards, you're about 3 to 4 months away from starting the application process all over again. And then you're kind of scrambling. Oh, wait, did we do this? Did we get this done? And this gives us some time to be much more intentional and strategic on the go forward.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you kind of
Tracy,
explaining that because I know it's a balancing act between the timelines and some things are going to overlap as you prepare from one grant cycle to the next grant cycle and everything that goes along in the midst of that. Jeff, I see your hand raised.
I think the only thing that would be consequential is that the new applicants would have to wait in order to apply to get in. So they wouldn't be able to onboard each year. It would be every other year that they would have to prep their application and then be able to step in. The renewals would happen automatic for those that are already in, provided that they're meeting the standard. But new applicants would have to wait.
It's almost like hopscotch. You got to jump in when you can fit in.
I mean, you can,
But the only thing is you're having to kind of really time it perfectly to be able to get in.
yeah.
But once you're in, you kind of fall into that same schedule or routine of every other project that's having to go through that application process. Okay. I appreciate you
also,
all explaining
it
that.
also gives more prep time though. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, so you have a lot more time to kind of vet what you're applying for and get some feedback rather than being rushed into that 3-month period. You have a full year to begin to look at what you're trying to propose to possibly have us to look at it as well. COC, do devil's advocate like we did with the open table. This gives a lot more time for us to make sure that the application is a solid application.
It's really necessary breathing room. And also, you know, you heard us talk in the presentation earlier about what is made possible for us as a lead agency in terms of outreach to the agencies for preparation and things like that. So this opens up the space, I think, to really have a deeper dive with our agencies and provide a deeper level of support. And it gives the system time to adjust to the changes that are occurring in the system without jumping from competition to competition, you know, every 6 months or so. So
Right. It is. The time goes by so fast. So by the time you're mid-year, you're prepping for the next following year.
yeah.
Do you all think, given, we've all had to pivot, that word was overused during the COVID, but we've all had to pivot in terms of the COC and the NOFA being released to be able to respond and get applications, in and funded and all that. Do you think going forward, this is going to be our norm in terms of the 2-year cycle for the COC funded projects? Or is this like an implementation test of strategies for HUD?
This has been a conversation that's been happening for a long time that they wanted to go to it because it's better for them too as well to not do this on an annual basis. And a lot of other government agencies have already done it. They talked about it at the National Alliance Conference, not this year, but last year, about other government entities already doing it. So I think that is the desire to go to it. Hopefully they stay with it if it works well.
Okay. Well, it seems like they've had enough probably data also to kind of support the outcome of being able to shift from an annual to, every 2 years of going through this process. So, okay. Well, thank you all for the discussion on that. Are there any other questions related to the COC update regarding upcoming collaborative application and 2-year application process? Okay. I can't see everybody, and I don't see a hand raised. Okay. All right.
Tracy, I'll repost in the chat the agenda just so you have it in the window.
Yeah, I'm shuffling between two screens to make sure that I can see it all. Hold on. Okay. All right. And so this concludes this section, and then the next one is you're gonna segue into the next agenda item regarding the unspent COC funding.
Yes, actually, Colin's gonna talk about those things. Actually, with regard to the, this is the, item 6 on the agenda, updates on system performance. There's not a lot of information, on unspent funds. That is a report that we get from HUD, periodically. And unfortunately, we thought we'd be able to alert you as to, how much was unspent by the end of June, but Colin has not received the information. So I
It-
want
Hold on. It came late yesterday.
to.
And like literally it came at like 5 o'clock yesterday, and I got it and sort of skimmed it, but have not had time to process it. So I would ask a little indulgence that we are allowed to take a little bit of time and actually put it into something meaningful rather than here's a big chart of stuff and trying to decipher it in real time. I think is not going to be a good use of anybody's time today.
Sure, I understand. I would
Apologies.
appreciate you being able to kind of look through it to review it and kind of decipher what information is necessary for this committee to be able to review and kind of digest and discuss.
Yeah.
So you can push it on to the next meeting agenda.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Mhm. Okay. So should we return back to the minutes being, because I think that was the last of the agenda item. I think it was.
I
Yeah.
think you're right. I don't know. Colin, did you want to talk any more about the relocation or reallocation or what you said earlier was enough?
I think that was enough.
Okay.
We'll be bringing it up at policy and planning on Monday. It'll be brought up at HSAC on Wednesday next week, and we will work our way through it.
Okay.
And I think Anthony's right. We as the lead agency sort of serve in this weird role where it's up to us to ensure we have the strongest application possible. And when people are actively putting together proposals to compete with each other, we can't get involved, but before and after we can help sort of tighten things up. So it's sort of this weird, it's different from city RFPs where there can't be technical assistance. There's a small window for this and this, but because we are responsible for submitting the strongest application possible to HUD, we are able to do that. And yeah, the restriction on the DV bonus, Jeff, is something that's the piece that needs to be brought back to policy and planning and to HSAC next week, just as a reminder. And we'll be sending out a full email about that to the COC and HSAC.
Tracy, you're muted, by the way.
Yeah, just real. So going back, and again, I apologize for my technical issues and joining late. So you provided the overview of the ESG submissions, and we need to vote to accept those recommendations to advance this to HSAC in order for final approval. So we need to probably do that because the other two items that were subset items of 6 are going to be pushed to another agenda for another meeting or the next meeting to give staff, ample time to kind of review that information and prepare information to be shared. So should we go ahead and do that before going back to the minutes?
I would say yes, but just everybody keep in mind that, you know, the acceptance is really just all hearts and minds are gathered on this particular, this idea, but also that it could still change. And we will get information out if it does. For example, if Housing for New Hope says, we really want to focus on something else, we know we applied, but we want to shift our focus, right? It suddenly makes a lot of money available, and what are we going to do with it? So, you know, we'll have those conversations over the next day or two, and keep you posted as to how whether and how anything changes.
Given what you just shared, though, is it, are you asking us as a subcommittee to go ahead, given the information that's been presented, to go ahead and move forward to approve those
Yeah.
or the recommendations, with the caveat that some things may be subject to change outside of what you all have control over?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So let's move forward with that then. I'll take a motion to accept in advance the ESG recommendations for funding from one of the committee members.
I'll make a motion to accept the recommendations.
Thank you, Ms. Eliza. Could I get a second?
Nick may have to be the second.
Apologies. Yeah, I second that.
Thank you, Nick.
Okay. Thank you, Nick. I'm sorry, my dog is barking in the background. Hold on. Okay. So that has been approved to be forwarded to HSAC to further review the recommended changes and funding recommendations from staff to approve those ESG recommended funded projects. And like Anthony mentioned, if there are any changes to that, staff will definitely communicate that with us. So we'll just be abreast of that as it moves forward through our protocol. Next agenda item that we need to probably go back to is, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we do, Eliza. Thank you. I'm all over the place. We do need to vote in the chat. Thank you. Can we each vote in the chat so we can have this documented?
Perfect.
Yes, Anthony, motion to accept NC ESG funding recommendations in advance to HSAC with the caveat that recommendations could change after discussing with the agencies. And Elijah motion, Nick second the motion, so the motion is carried. Thank you. So we'll return back to the top of the agenda. Do we have a quorum to be able to make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
I believe this is a quorum, right, Eliza?
I believe so, yes. Because I'm not off the committee yet. So
Okay, great.
after this meeting, I'll be done. So
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve. We're approving two sets of minutes, May.
Right, May and June. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Eliza.
Yeah, I will make a motion to approve the minutes for the performance management subcommittee for May and June of 2024.
Okay, thank you. Can we have a second motion?
So Nick had sent me a message earlier in the chat. He was not on this committee or at the meeting. Can he second and then abstain afterwards? Okay, so that's an option, or I guess Shantae could second, would be the other option.
And I second if I drafted the minutes. that okay? Does it matter?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I can second.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Nick seconds. So the motion carries for the acceptance and approval of the minutes for our subcommittee for May and June of 2024.
Can we
Okay.
get you all to vote in the chat again, just to be
Yes.
consistent? Okay.
Okay. It looks as if everyone, okay. Looks as if everyone has voted. So we do have record of the minutes being approved for May and June for the subcommittee's minutes. And I think that concludes the agenda. We are going to shift the last agenda item to allow staff to have enough time to read and review the information to be able to share that with the subcommittee at the next meeting. And so we'll push that to that next meeting, but I didn't see anything else that was on and Anthony, you went through the changes in membership earlier.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
And Eliza talked about her focus, and Renee's actually just joining. Eliza talked about her focus shifting from this committee to the governance efforts for the HSAC. It's an ad hoc committee, right, Eliza, that will be.
Yes, an ad hoc, it's like a subcommittee or ad hoc or working group. I think all that
Mhm.
language is interchangeable
Yeah.
under executive committee. So the hope is that it would be short term, and then once that work is complete, that I could return to one of the standing committees.
Oh, great. Great. Okay. And the new person that's joining us is Nick, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna probably jack his name up. Periante? Is it Periante?
Yeah, no, you nailed it.
Okay. All right. Because I often get with my last name Dino, so I'm always sensitive to no, it's Dino. So I'm okay. Well, great. Well, thank you for joining us. We welcome you to the subcommittee. And before we conclude, were there any questions or things that we needed to discuss based on the information that was shared with us today, or things that may have gave you pause to ask a question before we conclude and adjourn?
Tracy, I'll just give a thank you. Renee was just able to join. She served as a reviewer with the ESG, so I just want to give a special thank you. She also has signed up for the COC competition. So Renee, I know you missed a lot today, but we'll have the recording out, and just want to give you a shout and a thank you for your work and helping us get through the funding competitions.
Yes, I concur. Thank you so much. It takes a lot. This is a lot of work on the other side. So I appreciate her volunteering to do that as well. All right. As I say in the Baptist church, if all minds and hearts are clear, we can adjourn. If we can have a motion to adjourn. Do we
This is
need a
Eliza.
motion?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Do we need a second? Sure.
I'll second.
All right. Thank you, Shantae. All right. You all have a good afternoon. Again, I apologize for my tech issues this morning. Hopefully this rain and this storm Debbie is going to bypass us and not cause us much damage. So stay safe and dry out there. And until next time, take care. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Bye.